15 Black celebrities who married ugly wives, then and now, 2026. Fame promises luxury, admiration, and a perfect love story. But what if marriage becomes the most dangerous price of success? Behind legendary careers, sold-out arenas, and million-dollar deals are unions filled with betrayal, control, violence, and emotional collapse. These Black icons conquered the world, yet many lost their peace at home. Were these marriages doomed by fame or by choices made behind closed doors? Tonight, we expose the hidden cost of success that history rarely tells. Subscribe to Black Excellence Legends and comment below. Do you believe fame destroys love, or does it simply reveal who people truly are? Ray Charles. Ray Charles is remembered as one of the most revolutionary figures in American music, a visionary who fused gospel, blues, jazz, and R&B into a sound that permanently changed the industry. With classics like Georgia on My Mind, I Got a Woman, and What Did I Say, he broke racial and musical barriers, earning 17 Grammy Awards and global recognition as a pioneer of soul music. His influence extended beyond sound. He was among the first Black artists to demand ownership of his master recordings, reshaping power dynamics in the music business. Behind this extraordinary success, however, Ray Charles's personal life tells a far more troubling story, particularly his long and painful marriage to Della Beatrice Howard Robinson. They married in 1955, just as Ray's career was gaining momentum. For more than 2 decades, Della managed the household and raised their children, while Ray toured relentlessly, building an empire that rarely paused. To the public, they appeared to represent stability and loyalty. Privately, their relationship deteriorated under constant absence, emotional distance, and mounting tension. As Ray's fame peaked in the 1960s and early 1970s, the marriage unraveled. Prolonged separations created resentment, and trust eroded on both sides. Confirmed accounts from people close to the family later revealed infidelity within the marriage, compounding existing fractures. Financial pressure worsened the situation. Ray's income was enormous, but so were his expenses. Legal issues, addiction recovery, touring costs, and family obligations all collided at once. By the time the couple divorced in 1977, the fallout was devastating. The settlement reportedly left Ray paying out roughly $1 million, along with property and long-term support. The divorce marked one of the most financially damaging moments of his life, coinciding with a period when his career momentum had slowed and his personal stability was fragile. The emotional loss cut deeper than the financial one. Friends later described Ray as profoundly changed, less trusting, and deeply wounded by the collapse of what he once believed was his safe foundation. Ray Charles eventually rebuilt his career, earning renewed respect and acclaim in later years. Yet the marriage that spanned his rise to greatness left scars that never fully healed. His story reflects a harsh truth behind the spotlight. Even unmatched talent cannot protect a relationship from neglect, imbalance, and unresolved strain. Ray Charles gave the world freedom through music, but his personal life reminds us that genius often comes with a hidden cost, one paid quietly, far from the applause. Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke stands as one of the most transformative figures in American music, a pioneer who carried the emotional power of gospel into the mainstream and helped invent the sound of modern soul. With timeless songs like You Send Me, Cupid, and the civil rights anthem, A Change Is Gonna Come, Cooke was not only a chart-topping vocalist, but also a strategic businessman. At a time when Black artists were routinely exploited, he fought for ownership of his recordings and publishing, setting a precedent that reshaped industry economics. Behind that brilliance, however, Cooke's private life was marked by instability and unresolved tension. His marriage to Barbara Campbell began during a period of rapid ascent, when constant touring and new freedoms collided with domestic responsibility. As his fame grew, so did distance at home. Friends and biographers have described a lifestyle defined by excess, temptation, and long absences, conditions that strain trust and emotional connection. The public image of a smooth romanticist masked a household under pressure. Everything came to a sudden and tragic halt in December 1964, when Sam Cooke died at just 33 years old, under circumstances officially ruled a homicide by a motel manager acting in self-defense. The case closed quickly, but unanswered questions fueled controversy for decades. In the aftermath, further turmoil followed. Legal disputes and family conflicts over Cooke's estate and catalog emerged, complicating his legacy and limiting how much control his children ultimately had over his work. What makes Sam Cooke's story especially painful is the timing. He was entering a new creative phase, politically conscious, independent, and increasingly powerful, just as his personal life was unraveling. His death froze him in history as both a symbol of promise and a cautionary tale. Sam Cooke's influence endures in every soul singer who followed, but his life reminds us that trailblazers often carry invisible weight. He changed the rules of music ownership and expression, yet never lived long enough to find peace beyond the stage. His legacy asks a haunting question: how different might history have been if genius had been granted time to heal? O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson was once the embodiment of American success. A record-breaking NFL star, charismatic pitchman, and crossover celebrity who transcended sports. By the late 1970s and 1980s, he was not just admired, he was trusted. His image symbolized charm, discipline, and achievement, making his later fall one of the most shocking reversals in modern public life. Behind the polished persona, Simpson's personal world was deeply unstable. His marriage to Nicole Brown Simpson became increasingly volatile, marked by repeated conflict, police involvement, and cycles of reconciliation and separation. Court records and documented incidents show a relationship strained by jealousy, control, and emotional volatility. Even after their divorce in 1992, the connection did not fully sever. Financial ties, shared children, and unresolved obsession kept tensions alive. Everything changed in June 1994 when Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman were murdered. The case that followed transformed O.J. Simpson from a beloved figure into the center of a national reckoning. His criminal trial, which ended in acquittal, and the subsequent civil trial, which found him liable and ordered him to pay $33.5 million in damages, dismantled his reputation and fortune. Endorsements vanished, income streams collapsed, and public perception hardened. In the years that followed, Simpson's life narrowed dramatically. Legal troubles continued, culminating in a prison sentence for armed robbery and kidnapping in an unrelated case. Though later released, he never reclaimed his former standing. The marriage that once symbolized glamour became the opening chapter of a tragedy that consumed everything else. O.J. Simpson's story is not simply about guilt or innocence. It is about how unchecked fame, unresolved violence, and emotional fixation can corrode a life. He had access, wealth, and adoration, yet lost the one thing he could not replace: public trust. His legacy stands as a stark warning that celebrity can amplify flaws as easily as it magnifies success, and that some collapses are so complete, no comeback is possible. James Brown. James Brown was more than a performer. He was an institution. Crowned the godfather of soul, he engineered funk's DNA, influenced hip-hop's rhythmic backbone, and redefined live performance with military precision. With over 70 charted singles, relentless touring, and total command of his band, Brown embodied discipline and authority on stage. That same intensity, however, followed him home, where control often replaced compassion and success magnified instability. Brown's personal life was shaped by cycles of volatility that paralleled his public dominance. His marriages unfolded under the strain of non-stop work, mounting legal pressure, and a temperament that allowed little room for vulnerability. The most turbulent chapter came during his marriage to Adrienne Rodriguez, which coincided with a period of deep personal unraveling. Friends and court records from the era describe a relationship defined by addiction, repeated arguments, and police involvement. The household became a pressure cooker. Financial stress, paranoia, and emotional exhaustion fed into each other with destructive force. Money did not bring relief. Lavish spending collided with unpaid taxes and lawsuits, draining resources even as Brown's health declined. The chaos eroded trust and safety, leaving both partners isolated inside a public image that could not crack. Adrienne's death in 1996, following complications after surgery, closed a devastating chapter, but left enduring questions about how much damage had already been done by years of instability. Brown continued performing, but the cost of that era was permanent. His later years were marked by legal battles over his estate and a reputation complicated by contradictions, musical liberation alongside personal rigidity. When he died in 2006, tributes rightly honored his revolutionary impact. Yet his life story resists simple celebration. James Brown's legacy forces an uncomfortable truth. Innovation does not excuse harm, and power without balance corrodes everything it touches. He taught the world how to feel rhythm in its bones, but his private life shows how easily control can become chaos. The question his story leaves us with is stark. Can greatness survive without accountability? Or does unchecked authority always demand a hidden price? Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones stands among the most accomplished creators in modern music history. As a producer, composer, arranger, and executive, he helped shape recordings that sold hundreds of millions of copies, spanning jazz, film scores, pop, and R&B. From guiding Michael Jackson's most successful albums to scoring Hollywood films and opening doors for Black excellence, Jones built a legacy defined by precision, vision, and cultural reach. Yet even architects of greatness carry private burdens. Jones's marriage to actress Peggy Lipton symbolized glamour and creative power, a union that drew constant attention as their careers soared. Together they raised two daughters while navigating a lifestyle fueled by fame, travel, and public expectation. Behind the scenes, however, the pressures of two demanding lives collided. Financial commitments multiplied as Jones invested in ambitious projects, and emotional distance widened amid constant motion. Trust became the fault line. Reports from those close to the situation later confirmed infidelity, a revelation that struck deeply at Jones's sense of loyalty and pride. Rather than engage publicly, he chose restraint, filing for divorce quietly in 1990. The settlement was substantial, reportedly costing him millions, and forcing a period of financial recalibration at a time when he was already managing industry risk. What distinguishes Jones's story is not scandal, but composure. He did not weaponize the breakup or seek sympathy. Instead, he rebuilt, professionally and personally, by focusing on mentorship, philanthropy, and continued creative leadership. Still, the marriage left a lasting imprint. Friends have noted that Jones became more guarded, valuing privacy and control over vulnerability in later relationships. Quincy Jones's life illustrates a nuanced reality. Even those who orchestrate harmony for the world may struggle to sustain it at home. His genius created timeless unity in sound, yet intimacy proved more fragile than any composition. His story asks a quiet, enduring question. When brilliance demands everything, what remains for love to hold on to? Gary Coleman. Gary Coleman's rise to fame was swift and overwhelming. As the breakout star of Different Strokes, he became one of the most recognizable child actors in American television history, earning millions before reaching adulthood. His catchphrases entered pop culture, and his image symbolized innocence, humor, and success. Yet behind the laughter was a life shaped by chronic illness, legal exploitation, and a relentless loss of control over his own destiny. By adulthood, Coleman's finances were already compromised. Lawsuits against parents, managers, and advisors exposed years of mismanagement, leaving him deeply distrustful and financially unstable. It was during this vulnerable period that he married Shannon Price in 2007, a relationship that quickly drew concern from friends and observers. The marriage moved at alarming speed, with reports of frequent arguments, police involvement, and emotional volatility emerging almost immediately. Though they divorced within a year, the separation did not bring distance. Price continued living with Coleman, maintaining influence over his daily life despite deteriorating health. Witness accounts and court filings later described a household defined by conflict, neglect, and alleged abuse. Coleman himself sought restraining orders and admitted struggling with anger and dependency, revealing how deeply trapped he felt. In 2010, Coleman suffered a fatal brain hemorrhage after a fall at home. The aftermath intensified public scrutiny. Price made the decision to withdraw life support within days, a choice that sparked controversy among friends and fans who questioned whether his wishes were fully honored. Legal battles followed over his estate, but the courts ultimately ruled against Price, citing inconsistencies and a lack of legal standing. Gary Coleman died with only a fraction of the wealth he once earned, his legacy overshadowed by exploitation rather than protection. His marriage did not create his downfall, but it accelerated an already fragile situation shaped by years of lost autonomy. Coleman's story exposes a brutal reality of child stardom. Early fame without safeguards can leave adults defenseless. He made the world laugh, yet lived in constant struggle. His life asks a haunting question. When success arrives too early, who is responsible for ensuring it doesn't become a lifelong burden? Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye was one of the most emotionally expressive voices in modern music, an artist who transformed soul into a medium for introspection, sensuality, and social critique. With landmark albums like What's Going On and Let's Get It On, he elevated R&B beyond entertainment, turning it into a conversation about pain, love, and survival. His artistry was intimate and vulnerable, but his personal life was anything but peaceful. Gaye's marriage to Anna Gordy, sister of Motown founder Berry Gordy, placed him at the intersection of love, power, and obligation. The union offered privilege and protection, but it also imposed control. Anna managed finances, influenced career decisions, and shaped public perception, creating an imbalance that grew heavier as Marvin matured artistically. What began as mentorship gradually felt like confinement. As Marvin's creative ambitions clashed with Motown's constraints, tension at home escalated. Both partners sought emotional escape, and infidelity deepened resentment. By the time they divorced in 1977, the separation was not just personal, it was financial warfare. The settlement forced Marvin to relinquish royalties and assets, prompting him to create Here, My Dear, an album that turned divorce into raw musical testimony. It remains one of the most candid artistic responses to marital collapse ever recorded. The aftermath was devastating. Financial strain, substance dependence, and emotional isolation followed Marvin into his next relationship, which proved equally unstable. His life spiraled as he struggled to reconcile sensitivity with unresolved anger. In 1984, the conflict reached a tragic end when Marvin was shot and killed by his father during a domestic dispute, just one day before his 45th birthday. Marvin Gaye's marriage did not merely fail, it reshaped his trajectory. It fueled masterpieces, but also magnified wounds that never healed. Smokey Robinson. Smokey Robinson is celebrated as one of the greatest lyricists and melodic architects in the history of popular music. As the frontman of the Miracles and a key creative pillar of Motown, he helped define an era with songs like The Tracks of My Tears, Shop Around, and Cruisin'. His writing captured vulnerability with elegance, shaping how love, heartbreak, and longing were expressed in Black music for generations. To the public, Smokey embodied emotional clarity and romantic wisdom. Behind that polished image, however, his personal life unfolded with far less harmony. Smokey married Claudette Rogers in 1959, his bandmate and creative partner, forming what many considered Motown's ideal couple. For nearly 3 decades, they shared success, fame, and family. Yet the pressures of superstardom slowly eroded stability. Constant touring, executive responsibilities at Motown, and growing distance placed strain on their relationship, even as they maintained a flawless public facade. By the early 1980s, cracks became impossible to ignore. Smokey later acknowledged struggles with substance addiction during this period, a private battle that impaired judgment and emotional presence. At the same time, revelations of infidelity surfaced, shattering trust within the marriage. The betrayal stunned fans who associated Robinson with emotional honesty and restraint. In 1986, after 27 years together, the marriage ended quietly but painfully. The divorce carried lasting consequences. Claudette reportedly received a substantial financial settlement, including a share of royalties tied to the Miracles catalog. While Smokey continued to perform and record, his financial position and emotional foundation were permanently altered. Those close to him noted a shift, greater caution, deeper introspection, and a more guarded approach to intimacy. Smokey Robinson's story reveals a striking contradiction. He taught the world how to articulate love with precision, yet struggled to sustain it privately. His genius remained intact, but the cost of imbalance lingered. His journey reminds us that emotional insight in art does not guarantee emotional discipline in life, and that even the gentlest voices can carry hidden wounds long after the music fades. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was more than a boxer. He was a global symbol of courage, conviction, and black self-determination. Inside the ring, he dominated with speed and intelligence, becoming a multiple-time heavyweight champion. Outside it, he challenged political authority, racial injustice, and cultural norms, transforming himself into one of the most influential figures of the 20th century. Yet even a man who stood fearless before the world faced vulnerability at home. Ali's first marriage, to Sanjay Roy, began in 1964, at the exact moment his fame exploded. The relationship moved quickly, driven by passion and public attention. Almost immediately, fundamental differences emerged. Ali had recently embraced Islam and adopted a strict moral framework, while Sanjay resisted the lifestyle changes expected of her. Their home became a space of constant tension, divided by incompatible values rather than lack of affection. As Ali's career faced its first major crisis, stripped of his title and banned from boxing for refusing military service, the marriage collapsed. At a moment when Ali needed unwavering support, Sanjay filed for divorce and left. The separation was swift and emotionally devastating. Those close to Ali later described the experience as a deep betrayal that intensified his isolation during one of the darkest periods of his life. Though the marriage lasted barely 2 years, its impact was profound. It taught Ali a harsh lesson about loyalty under pressure and reshaped how he approached relationships moving forward. He would marry again, but never without caution. The emotional wound from being abandoned during adversity lingered, reinforcing his belief that strength must come from within. Muhammad Ali's life is often framed as a story of triumph. Yet this early marriage exposes a quieter truth. Even the strongest champions are vulnerable when faith, love, and timing collide. His story asks a powerful question. How do you measure loyalty when the world turns against you? And who truly stands when glory disappears? Lionel Richie. Lionel Richie rose from the smooth harmonies of the Commodores to become one of the most successful solo artists in global music history. With more than 100 million records sold worldwide, Richie mastered the art of universal emotion, delivering hits like Hello, Endless Love, and All Night Long. His music crossed racial, cultural, and generational boundaries, presenting him as the embodiment of warmth, stability, and romantic optimism. To the public, Lionel Richie seemed to have everything figured out. Privately, however, his personal life told a far more complicated story. Richie married Brenda Harvey in 1975, long before his solo superstardom reached its peak. Together they built a family and later adopted Nicole Richie, forming what appeared to be a solid household. As Lionel's fame exploded in the 1980s, the balance shifted. Endless touring, studio commitments, and global attention created emotional distance that gradually eroded the marriage. Tensions reached a breaking point in 1988 when a highly publicized confrontation involving Richie, Brenda, and dancer Diane Alexander shattered his carefully protected image. The incident made international headlines and permanently altered how the public viewed him. Their divorce in 1993 was not only emotionally painful, but financially significant, marking one of the most expensive separations in R&B and pop music at the time. Richie later married Diane Alexander in 1995, hoping for a fresh start. They had 2 children and initially lived away from intense media scrutiny. Over time, however, familiar pressures returned. The marriage ended in 2004, accompanied by contentious financial negotiations that again placed Richie's private life under a microscope. Despite continued professional success, the emotional toll was undeniable. What makes Lionel Richie's story compelling is not scandal alone, but contrast. He built a career on harmony and reassurance, yet struggled to maintain stability in his own relationships. Over time, Richie adapted, shifting into mentorship roles and redefining his public presence. His journey reveals a sobering truth. Sustaining a flawless image can be as exhausting as chasing success itself. Lionel Richie reminds us that even the voices that comfort the world may quietly search for peace behind the scenes. Miles Davis. Miles Davis was a relentless innovator whose influence reshaped jazz multiple times across 5 decades. From cool jazz to modal explorations and electric fusion, Davis refused to stay still. Albums like Kind of Blue remain among the most influential recordings in music history. Yet the same intensity that fueled his creativity also defined his personal life, particularly his turbulent marriage to actress Cicely Tyson. Davis and Tyson married in 1981, forming a union that captivated public attention. Both were cultural icons, Miles as a musical revolutionary, Tyson as a groundbreaking actress redefining Black womanhood on screen. Their relationship, however, was never calm. Davis battled long-standing substance dependence, mood swings, and emotional volatility. Tyson, by contrast, sought structure, discipline, and personal growth, creating a fundamental imbalance. Their marriage was marked by cycles of conflict and reconciliation. Tyson later spoke openly about enduring emotional and physical abuse, while also acknowledging that she tried to help Davis confront his addiction. The relationship became a battlefield between destruction and healing, passion and pain. Despite moments of support, the emotional damage accumulated steadily. By 1988, the marriage ended in divorce. The separation carried financial consequences for Davis, who reportedly paid a significant settlement at a time when his health and stability were already fragile. More damaging, however, was the psychological impact. Those close to Davis described him as increasingly isolated and guarded after the divorce, retreating further into himself. Miles Davis continued to create and perform, but the scars of the marriage never fully faded. His relationship with Cicely Tyson remains one of the most revealing chapters of his life, a window into how brilliance can coexist with profound dysfunction. Davis changed music forever, but his personal story warns that unchecked intensity can consume intimacy. His legacy asks a difficult question. When innovation demands everything, what is left for the people closest to the fire? Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron is immortalized as one of the greatest athletes in American history, a man whose name is forever linked to perseverance, dignity, and unmatched consistency. When he broke Babe Ruth's home run record in 1974, Aaron did more than rewrite baseball history. He challenged deep racial barriers in a sport and a country resistant to change. Over a 23-year career, he hit 755 home runs, earned 25 All-Star selections, and became a symbol of excellence achieved without spectacle. Yet behind this historic achievement was a deeply painful personal life that rarely entered the public narrative. Aaron's first marriage to Barbara Lucas began early in his career and lasted nearly 2 decades. On the surface, it appeared stable, reflecting the image of a disciplined family man. Privately, however, the pressures of fame, relentless travel, and racial hostility placed enormous strain on the relationship. As Aaron endured death threats and hate mail while chasing Ruth's record, his home life grew increasingly fragile. Friends later revealed that emotional distance widened during these years, compounded by financial tension and allegations of infidelity. The marriage ultimately ended in the early 1970s, at precisely the moment when Aaron was facing the most intense scrutiny of his career. The divorce reportedly resulted in significant financial loss and left emotional scars that followed him long after the cheers faded. What makes Aaron's story especially poignant is timing. While the world celebrated his strength and resilience, he was quietly navigating betrayal, loneliness, and exhaustion. Unlike many athletes who responded to pain with public rebellion, Aaron internalized it, maintaining composure while carrying the weight alone. His second marriage later in life brought greater stability, but the wounds of the first never fully disappeared. Hank Aaron's legacy is rightly defined by achievement, but his personal story reveals a deeper truth. Greatness often demands silence. He bore racial hatred publicly and personal heartbreak privately, never allowing either to derail his purpose. Aaron reminds us that heroism is not only measured by records broken, but by the strength it takes to endure pain without letting it define you. Al Green. Al Green's voice defined the sound of romantic soul in the 1970s, blending sensual vulnerability with spiritual longing. Songs like Let's Stay Together, Tired of Being Alone, and Love and Happiness made him one of the most influential R&B singers of his era. With millions of records sold and critical acclaim worldwide, Green appeared to embody emotional harmony. Yet his personal life told a far more turbulent story. Green's relationship with Shirley Kiles, whom he later married, became one of the most controversial chapters in his life. Their union unfolded during a period when Green was grappling with fame, temptation, and a growing spiritual crisis. According to court records and later testimony, the marriage was marked by repeated conflict, allegations of abuse, and emotional volatility. What began as passion slowly transformed into chaos. The breaking point came in the mid-1970s, when a violent domestic incident shocked the music world. Though details remain complex and contested, the episode forced Green into a moment of reckoning. Soon after, he began withdrawing from secular music, turning increasingly toward religion. By 1983, the marriage ended in divorce, accompanied by a substantial financial settlement that placed further strain on Green's life. Rather than collapse, Al Green reinvented himself. He became a pastor, devoted himself to gospel music, and gradually rebuilt his sense of identity away from celebrity excess. His later return to secular music came with restraint and reflection, earning respect for its maturity rather than spectacle. Al Green's story is one of transformation through crisis. His marriage did not destroy him, but it forced him to confront the consequences of imbalance, anger, and unchecked emotion. He sang about love with unmatched tenderness, yet learned the hard way that love without discipline can become destructive. His life asks a profound question. Can personal collapse become the foundation for spiritual rebirth? And is redemption possible only after everything familiar falls apart? Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman was never just a basketball player, he was a cultural disruption. As a five-time NBA champion and one of the greatest rebounders in league history, Rodman built a Hall of Fame career on intensity, discipline, and fearlessness on the court. Yet off the court, he embraced chaos, turning his personal life into a public spectacle that often overshadowed his athletic greatness. No chapter reflects that contradiction more clearly than his short, explosive marriage to actress Carmen Electra. Rodman and Electra married in 1998 at the height of media obsession with celebrity excess. Their relationship moved at breakneck speed, fueled by fame, alcohol, and non-stop attention. What looked glamorous from the outside quickly unraveled behind closed doors. Both admitted later that substance abuse played a central role, impairing judgment and escalating conflict. Arguments became routine, and emotional volatility defined their daily life. The marriage lasted less than a year, but its impact was lasting. Public records and media reports documented multiple incidents involving police and hotel staff, turning private dysfunction into tabloid headlines. Financial strain compounded the chaos. Electra's lavish lifestyle, combined with Rodman's already unstable finances following declining NBA contracts, deepened stress rather than providing escape. By 1999, the marriage ended in divorce, leaving Rodman emotionally drained and financially vulnerable. The fallout symbolized a broader pattern in his life: brilliance without balance. While Rodman continued to command attention through reality television and media appearances, his personal instability persisted, revealing how fame amplified rather than healed underlying struggles. Dennis Rodman's story is not simply about a failed marriage. It is about a man who mastered control in one arena while surrendering it everywhere else. His relationship with Carmen Electra mirrored his internal conflict: intense, impulsive, and unsustainable. Rodman remains a legend, but his life reminds us that public rebellion often masks private disorder, and that notoriety cannot replace emotional grounding. His journey poses a stark question: when identity is built on extremes, is stability ever truly possible? Eddie Murphy rose faster and higher than almost any entertainer of his generation. From Saturday Night Live to blockbuster films like Beverly Hills Cop and Coming to America, he became one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood history. His charisma, comedic timing, and box office dominance defined the 1980s and 1990s, earning him tens of millions per film and global fame. To the public, Murphy represented effortless success. Privately, however, his personal life unfolded with growing tension. Murphy married Nicole Mitchell Murphy in 1993, forming what appeared to be a powerful, glamorous family. Together they had 5 children, and for years they projected stability despite Murphy's demanding career. Yet constant filming schedules, long absences, and the pressures of fame gradually eroded the relationship. By the mid-2000s, the marriage collapsed amid allegations of infidelity and emotional distance. The divorce in 2006 was financially significant, with Murphy reportedly paying around $15 million in settlement, along with ongoing support. At the same time, his career momentum slowed due to a string of box office disappointments, amplifying both financial and emotional strain. Unlike many celebrities, Murphy chose retreat rather than confrontation. He stepped back from public life, reduced his media presence, and focused on fatherhood and rebuilding stability. Over time, he re-emerged selectively, earning renewed respect through dramatic roles and later career resurgence. Eddie Murphy's story highlights the fragility beneath extraordinary success. He conquered Hollywood, but struggled to balance ambition with intimacy. His marriage did not fail because of lack of love, but because fame demanded more than any relationship could easily withstand. Murphy's journey reminds us that laughter can coexist with loneliness, and that even the most confident performers may quietly search for equilibrium once the spotlight dims. After hearing these stories, one uncomfortable question remains: who should be held accountable? The stars, their partners, or the system that glorifies excess in silence? We celebrate greatness but rarely confront the emotional wreckage left behind. Should legends be judged by their private failures? Or are they victims of a culture that rewards talent while ignoring humanity? There is no easy answer, and that's the point. Now it's your turn. Share your honest thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Black Excellence Legends for more untold stories that challenge myths, expose reality, and spark conversations the industry avoids.